Welcome to Jack's Corner, where conservative values meet national headlines, and truth and reality have a seat at the table. From Louisville, Kentucky, here's your host, Jack Richardson.
Well, welcome to another edition of Jack's Corner, where truth and reality are given a seat at the table. I'm not here to give you the news, but tell you and help you process the news. And what a great time of the year. Everybody seems to be in a good mood, not only because it's the Christmas season, but we're going to have a strong man, a real leader, a real statesman in the presidency in just about a month. It feels great waking up knowing that we're going to have some stability and bring some unity to the country. But anyway, I want to get into some of the news stories of this week that I think you'll find interesting. I sure did. And the first one, I'm somewhat amused by it. I'll get into some deeper stuff in a minute. But the first one, I just couldn't resist. And it was in Breitbart News, and it was about Tim Walz. And he said, how in the world did we lose to a billionaire? Well, Timmy, did you ever look in the mirror and ask yourself that question? I mean, he is the most bizarre man. And if you saw all of his physical mannerisms and waving his hands and just acting like people were just in love with him, he's a real psycho. It's amazing how he even got elected governor. But I guess coming from Minnesota, that's no surprise. They have a history of extreme liberalism up there. And that has a whole history in and of itself. Heavy German population, liberalism basically historically found its origins in Germany. But I digress there. Timmy is really a weird man. But remember when back in the campaign, the Democrat Party decided that they were going to hang that moniker of weird and weirdness around the neck of the Republicans? Well, there was a strategy behind that. And what was that strategy? Well, they knew that Tim Walz was weird. So what do? Well, you hang it around your opponent's neck because you need to inoculate yourself from what you are. The Democrats are really, really great at projection. And as I've said many times before, and will continue to say it until it sinks into the American psyche, that the accusations of the left, the accusations of the Democrats are really admissions. They're confessions. Again, the accusations of the Democrats are really confessions. And if you listen closely, you will find out and you will see that they are telling you who they are, and what they have planned, particularly planned for you. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up. And it was so interesting, but there was this weird picture, and we'll show you the picture, but I guess there's too many out there to show you how he acted, and I'm sure many of you saw it during the campaign. But we are very lucky. You're very lucky. We're very lucky as a nation. And thank God for Trump, because I keep reminding Republicans of this as well. Trump is the only one that could have defeated Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris. And I hope that's a lesson that will sink into the Republican psyche as well. So anyway, to move on, I wanted to at least start with that and tell you about that one. Next item I have on my list here is the Biden administration is selling parts of our border wall, at least parts that are going to be used in the border wall. Now, if anything should tell you and define what a Democrat is, what the left does, they are trying to do as much damage on their way out. It's almost like the devil's mission on this earth is to destroy everything that God loves. Well, the Democrats seem to be doing the same thing before Trump gets in. They're trying to cause as much destruction as possible. Can you imagine selling off parts of the wall, knowing that more of it's going to be built in the incoming administration? So really it is sabotage. So my idea, because many people says, well, there's nothing that Trump can do about it right now because he's not really president. Well, my recommendation is this. Anybody that buys any portion of that wall is going to have to answer to and face the consequences of the incoming administration. And if I were in his shoes, I would threaten him with, okay, no more government contracts. So you want to buy these very expensive, millions of dollars worth of parts and supplies for the wall on the penny, and then you want to turn right back around and sell it back to the taxpayer for millions. I don't think of you as a very good citizen. I don't think of you as a very good corporate citizen. So Trump has leverage right now. He can get in front of that mic, in front of those TV cameras, and said, we're going to track who buys any of this wall. And if you do, don't look for any favors or help from this administration. That's one way to stop it. He's already asked Biden to stop this, but Biden's not going to do it. And I'm going to get into some more things that Biden's doing. But anyway, that's my suggestion to Trump is, use your leverage right now, because you're coming into office. You're going to be there for 4 years. And if these people are not going to be good citizens and corporate citizens, then threaten them with the retribution that they should receive. So anyway, the next item is this news story with regard to how ABC and George Stephanopoulos. Now, George Stephanopoulos was the chief of staff under Clinton, and I won't get into what a nasty and vile and corrupt person he is. But again, and you've seen him on TV a lot, and he's on ABC, but I want to remind you that reporters are not a neutral source. Reporters aren't an unbiased source. They have an agenda. And so just because they're behind that TV camera and it says ABC News or NBC or CBS, no, they have an agenda, and you need to keep that in mind. But Stephanopoulos is basically a big leftist. He's very unfair. He is a liar. And why am I so brash in saying that? Well, because ABC News and Stephanopoulos just had to pay Trump $15 million on a defamation suit because they lied about him and said that he was a rapist. But that's what the left does, because they get the lie out there. They know that it is a lie, but they are counting on you not following up to find out whether that was true or not. So you really have to check your sources. But this was a big news splash, and I love it because they're going to have to pay that towards Trump's presidential library. Now, on the heels of this settlement where they're having to pay this $15 million, this all ties into the passion that I have with regards to wanting to reform our judicial system and our jury system. It is an absolute mess, and something has to be done about it. But I'm going to move in from the lie that Stephanopoulos told that cost the company $15 million to the situation where Trump had to pay E. Jean Carroll, who I believe lied. It was not so much. Let me put it this way. Trump was in the trial in New York on allegations from E. Jean Carroll that he sexually abused her. Well, I want you to remember this, and this was in the news this week as well, about the Duke lacrosse players who were falsely accused of raping a black woman. And she came out this week and said it was all a lie. So remember the Me Too movement, and you have to believe all women? Well, I want to tell you something. I don't think the Bible or any other reasonable, rational person thinks that women are immune from lying. As an attorney, I can tell you I've done hundreds of divorce cases, and I can tell you the lies that I see. It comes from both sides, but to automatically believe somebody because they're a woman is insanity. And I can tell you from personal experience and the trials that I've been through and the cases that I've handled, that is absolutely not true. But this is what you get from these kind of movements, where you put your brain in neutral and you just stop thinking. So we go from Stephanopoulos, who's now having to pay a fine of, or his company is having to pay a fine of $15 million because of his lie. And believe me, that wasn't just his first lie. He lives a lie. He lives inside a lie. He is a lie. I don't think he's ever been introduced to the truth. But then we have followed up the proof that these things happen and are unjust is what happened to the lacrosse player. 3 young men in college had their lives destroyed by this false accusation. And I want to get into that a little bit deeper here. We had, this was in Raleigh, in the newspaper in Raleigh, North Carolina. The woman who in 2006 falsely accused 3 Duke University lacrosse players of raping her, that's Crystal Mangum, said this: "I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong." Well, you know what? How do you get back your reputation after that? That's where the lie is wrong. That's where we have to reform our jury system. And the DA and the prosecutor were so giddy. They're going to elevate themselves. They were going to advance themselves. They were going to be stars. They were going to just be wonderful people, and people were going to love them, but they were going to do it at the expense of these 3 young men. And they destroyed these 3 young men because of their own unchained, aggressive need to be known, to be famous, and to advance their careers. And that is wrong. That's why we have to have tighter controls over our district attorneys and over our prosecutors. We have to limit prosecutorial discretion because it's being abused so greatly. And there is not enough controls and checks and balances within our judicial system. But anyway, I get real passionate about this because I am an attorney. I've been practicing law for over 40 years, and I've basically seen it all. But no one in this country should ever find themselves in a courtroom and expect anything but a just result. And I know that's a high bar to get over. But if you can't give justice, then we're just living in a chaotic, wild, wild west situation. And we've got to stop that. And we've got to have a reform in our judicial system. So anyway, moving on, we are supposed to now, circling back, we're supposed to believe E. Jean Carroll. And did you realize that she got $83 million for this accusation? There is no proof. They can't even remember what day it was. She can't even remember. She lied about, I think it was the dress she was wearing and other things about when those things hadn't even been created yet. Her witnesses had poor memories. They couldn't. But you know why they got an $83 million ridiculous, absurd judgment against Trump? Because he's Trump, and because it was a New York jury. And in situations like that, where somebody is so public in a particular venue, I believe you need to have a change of venue where you have at least the chance of disinterested people. And the juries in basically New York are going to be about 98% liberal. And 98% of the people basically on those juries against Trump voted against him. You call that justice? No, that's not justice. So anyway, but what else would you expect from a New York jury? Now, I've said before, people say, Penny got off, but the only reason he got off is because the jurors there had something in common. It was self-interest that they let him off, and that's because they all have to ride the subway and they experience the same thing. Otherwise, they probably would have convicted him. Now, another thing I want to talk about, I know I get on this rant about the justice system, but it has become, I guess, the number one issue, I think, in the last 4 years under the Biden administration is the lawfare, how the justice system has been absolutely destroyed. And we have the lowest, in America, we have the lowest level of confidence in our justice system of anywhere in the world. And that is absolutely absurd. And I put it all at the feet of the left, of the Democrats who backed up Biden all the way. But this was all in part to bring down Trump. And that's not justice. But let's go back to the Daniel Penny case for a minute. And some of you may not know this, but his prosecutor was Daphne Uran. And Daphne Uran is a radical leftist, a lesbian, and she bragged about getting, and she is really proud about this fact that she bragged about getting a man off for murder of murdering an 87-year-old man. That's not anything to brag about, but that's who she is. And and also she's all about reparative justice. And I'll tell you, if you're white and you have Western values, this woman will hate you. And we'll show you a picture of her. But, isn't it interesting how sometimes people wear the evil that's on the inside of them on the outside? And this woman is pure evil, but she pursued Penny. And even after the jury exonerated him on manslaughter, they still wanted to go after him on the lesser charges. They just won't let up. They just can't stand it. But that's the character of the left that you're dealing with. And that's what makes it so dangerous, particularly in the judicial system, because they're all Machiavellian. The ends are justified by the means. So no matter what the means are, no matter how corrupt or vile the means are, as long as they reach their end. But the end that they want is anything but life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So just remember that. So now the next item I want to talk about, and this all ties in. Here we are. We're back to justice. The Mangione sickness. Oh my goodness. I mean, this thing is just wild. And this is bloodlust. And here's something that's just really sick. And also this is a warning for you. Many of you won't know it, but O.J. Simpson, he was this famous football player and out in California, and he was charged for murder of his wife and another man. There wasn't any relationship there, but this other man was living on their property, and he basically sliced him up with a knife, and then he jumped in his, I don't know whether it was a Bronco or some kind of an SUV, but it was white, and the police chased him down. The evidence was just so abundant to get against O.J. Simpson. And the California jury, and this was based on race, the California jury acquitted O.J. Simpson of murder. And what that is called is jury nullification. Now, what is jury nullification? It's a perverse verdict that doesn't comply, nor does it have anything to do with the evidence. It's totally against the evidence. It runs contrary to the evidence. So that's called jury nullification. So what does that have to do with Mangione? Well, let's look at two factors here. We've seen the sick, profane, pornographic women who lust after this bad boy. And you've seen it in the news that he titillates them, and they want to marry him. They want to have a relationship with him, and they get all turned on about Mangione because of his abs and his looks and so forth. Folks, this guy murdered somebody, and it's on tape. I mean, I'm not trying to prejudge the case, but I want to tell you something. You almost have to suspend your reality to not know that he's got a high bar, unless he's got a double somewhere, and you can fake the DNA and everything. This guy murdered this healthcare executive, Brian Thompson, who was married and had 2 children. So the women are going crazy over this, and it's been reported in The Guardian. A fundraiser for the health insurance CEO murder suspect has raised more than $125,000. Can you imagine? There's some people that have no concern whatsoever with regard to justice. or the people that have been victimized by the criminality of others. So now you talk about the women on one side, but on the other side you have these what I call simp men who are out there. They bought into this pathological ideology and this leftist, and they just want to tear down the system, and they just want to tear everything down. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to hook the whole thing with regard to the healthcare industry and the problems in the healthcare industry to this guy. So they want to turn Mangione into William Wallace. They need a champion. So they're going to take this murderer and they're going to hook this cause to him to help take the cause across the finish line, regardless of the injustice that will be done if he is acquitted. And there will be no justice for Thompson's family. But let me tell you somebody else who is also complicit with the healthcare industry today, and that's you, if you voted for Obama and if you supported Obamacare. You want to know what's wrong with your healthcare industry and healthcare today? It's because of Obamacare and the people who voted for him. And why did they want to nationalize healthcare? Well, it started back in Germany a couple 300 years ago, under Chancellor Wilhelm. And he brought in government health care for the people. And the people started developing this entitlement, thinking that they deserved this. But it's also one of the best means and ways of controlling the populace, because if you control their health, you got them. And so that's what's happened. So here we are trying to append to this murderer because he screamed and said that he had issues with regard to the healthcare system, and that's what made him do it. No, it didn't. He's vile, he's corrupt, he's a murderer, and that's all that is. And so what you need to do is that you need to separate those two issues: the issue with regard to the murder and the healthcare. If you want to deal with the healthcare, then first of all, you need to deal with the fact that you helped bring it and put it in the position that it's in today. But after that, let's deal with that with the incoming administration and deal with all the problems that the Democrats brought into the healthcare industry because they promised everybody something for nothing. And there's no such thing as something for nothing. Everybody's going to end up paying for it. So anyway, again, that's another issue with regards to the justice system. But again, a lot of times the people and the public, they're complicit in it. You need to see your own complicity so that hopefully in the future you can change your conduct in a way, and particularly the way you vote, so that these things don't happen to you. And yes, the healthcare industry has a big problem, but it doesn't deserve murder. So don't let them marry those two together. Now, let's go to, and again, here we are. We're back into the whole thing with regard to justice and so forth. Biden gives a record number of pardons. And we all know how it started with Hunter. I mean, really. And I've said this before. You really expected it of Biden because you knew he was corrupt anyway. And that's why you voted him out of office. But you didn't vote him out of office by, really, in my estimation, high enough numbers. We should have probably had 3 more Republican senators in the Senate today than we did, but people just really don't know the depth of the corruption of the Democrat Party and of Biden. But he pardoned Hunter, but then on top of that, he pardons another 1,500 people. And let me just go through a list of some of these people. It's unbelievable. No president has ever pardoned that many, but he's trying to get all of his old cronies off the hook. But let's look at some of these things. This is one guy that he pardoned, Michael Conahan. He funneled, and this was a Kids for Cash scandal. He funneled juvenile defendants to 2 private, for-profit detention centers in exchange for $2.1 million. And basically what we found out is that the sentences are disproportionate. Why? Well, the longer they're in there, the more this guy makes money. So you get disproportionate sentencing. There's no justice there. And as a result, one of the kids killed himself. There's murder on this guy's hands. There's blood on this guy's hands. And Biden pardons him? Are you serious? Think about this. Think about the consequences of voting into office the wrong people. Here's another one. Jimmy DeMora. DeMora made $450,000 off of bribes. And it was one of Ohio's most expansive corruption cases in history. And he's let off. And then we've got Rita Caldwell. Oh, this is a good one. She was convicted of embezzling. Now, take your seats. She was convicted of embezzling $53.7 million from the city. These are taxpayers' funds. $53.7 million. It was pegged as the largest municipal theft in U.S. history, and Biden just pardoned her. This is wrong, folks. Then we have Eric Bloom, who bilked investors. Stay seated, listen to this. Bilked investors out of more than $665 million in the biggest financial fraud case ever tried in Chicago. And he was pardoned by Biden. And of course, we know the Biden crime family. You've heard about it, and you know all the money that they got from Russia and how he got $3.5 million from the wife of the mayor of Moscow and the monies that he took from China and all that. Yes, we've finally gotten some justice. We've kicked him out of office and we've defeated him, but there's been a lot of damage done in the meantime. So this list goes on and on with regards to the 1,500, and we're still delving into it to seeing what kind of injustice was done with these pardons. But I mean, it's just unbelievable, and that kind of thing should never happen in this country. And that's why, again, I say that we need to basically reform the system, a massive reform on a lot of different levels. So now I want to get to basically the woke of the week. And so do y'all remember Jamal Bowman, the Congressman Jamal Bowman, Democrat from New York? Well, I didn't probably need to tell you he was Democrat, because once I tell you what he did, it's pretty synonymous with what those people do. He pulled the fire alarm in the Capitol to basically impede the progress of legislation in a vote. And he just recently said, "Dear white people, I don't know why I feel the need to keep talking to you." And then it goes on and on and on. Amazing. I'm going to tell you something, and I'll remind you again. Racism comes in more than one color. And you need to get that through your mind, and we need to start holding these people accountable for this type of talk. But can you imagine that he was a congressman at one time, and he has been voted out of office? But again, regarding going back to the Daniel Penny acquittal, he was talking, and I think what exercised him most was he hated that Daniel Penny got acquitted. And Rich Lowry of the National Review wrote this. He said, "One reason that the Penny case didn't turn out the way the left's racial obsessives hoped is that most Americans don't see anything through a prism of race." But that's all you hear from the left and the Democrat Party. And race was the primary thing that the communist nations, and particularly China, wanted to use as a wedge to weaken and divide Americans. And that's what I'm really excited about with the incoming Trump administration, is how he wants to unify the country. Division was what helped empower the Democrats, and they used division and chaos to gain power. Trump wants to unify. And, we had better race relations before Obama took office. But anyway, Lowry said, Americans don't see everything through the prism of race. And thank goodness. And we need to get back to that. We need to get back to a time where people aren't living as a color, but are living as a person. And the Democrats want people to live as a color. They're the ones that see differences. And we need to get back to a time when we treat each other as people and as persons, and not based upon your immutable characteristics. So here's another good one, another woke one. And this just goes to show you how psychotic the people on the coast are, particularly in California. A district attorney in California has to call a male, get this, a male who claims to be a woman but is charged with rape, and he's to be called by his preferred pronouns. Now, wait a minute. He's supposed to be a woman, but he is accused of rape, but he wants to be called by his pronouns. And so they're going to have to call him by his pronouns because that's what California law says that you've got to do. Really? California is insane. It used to be a reliably conservative and Republican state, but it has totally gone off the rails. But I found that as somewhat humorous in that this man who claims to be a woman who's accused of rape now wants to be called by his preferred pronouns. So anyway, I want to get to one last thing, and that is the question of the week. And I had a viewer ask, what is the best way to affect change in my state? And I can tell you, I talk with legislators almost daily here in Kentucky. And the best way to affect change is at the state level. And you can call your legislators, and they do listen because they represent a smaller group of people, and they are closer to the people. And you need to call them and be in contact with them. I'm in contact with them every day. And I can tell you that in a lot of things that I've done, have changed minds or caused them to have second thoughts or go, well, yeah, I think we do need to modify this piece of legislation or that piece of legislation. But they do listen to you because they represent a smaller segment of society. And if they don't listen to you, they're not going to be in office long. So exercise your right with regards to your state legislators, whether it's in the House or whether it's in the Senate of your state legislature. Call these people up. I find them very responsive, and they're not likely to not listen to you because they know that their elections, particularly House members, is every 2 years. So that's where you have a real impact. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of that. But at any rate, that's hopefully that's a good answer to the question that I got, or at least that's my answer to it because of my experience. And I'm just encouraging everybody to take advantage of that opportunity. So that's it for this week. Again, Merry Christmas to everyone. This is a great season and a great time as we are looking just a few weeks down the road to the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. Merry Christmas, everybody.